My name is John Seguin. I'm the president and chief librarian and one of the co-founders here at Third Iron. And today we're going to be talking about LibKey Link, the newest service that's coming from Third Iron. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to the presentation. If you haven't seen it yet, the chat box is open. If you have questions during the presentation, please do pop it in the chat. The actual presentation will only last about 20-25 minutes, so we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions that you may have at the end. Without further ado then, let's get started. We're going to talk about LibKey in general. We're going to talk about where that term comes from, what that technology refers to, and how it fits into the Third Iron ecosystem, as well as, of course, exactly what the LibKey Link experience is in PubMed, how it works, how you install it, and so on. And then talk about some common questions that I've heard so far about it to try and anticipate some questions that you may have. But certainly then we'll answer any other questions that you may have. But now, many of you that are on the call are likely already Third Iron customers using Browsine. But if you are not and you're brand new to this, certainly welcome. Third Iron's been around since about 2011, 2012. And since that time, we have largely focused on our flagship product called Browsine. That's now used at well over 700 institutions in 30 countries. That's used by university libraries, medical facilities and hospitals, government facilities, corporate libraries, and really anybody who has a great use for academic journals, research journals, and wants to keep people up to date with those, make sure they're engaged with them, provide a really easy experience to link to that content. So it's very great to have people who've been with us for many, many years and to be able to offer these new services to you. Now, this isn't going to be a Browsine presentation at all. So certainly if you're new to Browsine, I encourage you to check out our website at thirdiron.com and contact us to get a personal demonstration of that service. But I did need to point out a couple of things from Browsine because LibKey is actually a technology that came out of developing the Browsine experience. Browsine is focused on a consistent presentation of journals from a wide range of publishers and millions of articles. And part of what it does that's really important is it minimizes the clicks to get to content for your end users. So people who find a journal can very easily get to the full text content via your holdings and your authentication. And that's a real key component then of how this works. Very specifically then, if you're familiar, of course, with Browsine, you know that you can have a journal. You can find that in a number of different ways, get to that table of contents, and in one click, get right to the PDF document. Now, to do that, there's a lot of complexity that goes on behind the scenes, and we call that process of getting from a particular article a user's interested in to the PDF document in an authorized way, LibKey. And that's where the LibKey concept comes from. Now, how that works is actually quite complicated, even though it's very simple for the user and it just seems like, I click and it works. We have to take into consideration a number of complexities that libraries deal with all the time in order to make this very simple for the users. First, we have a knowledge of the article metadata. We know about these articles, of course, everything about them as well as their status of access. So is it open access? Is it not? Do we need to apply authentication? What platforms is this held on? Where is the PDF document within that page? Lots of different pieces of metadata need to be collected and organized and indexed. And then we marry that with the library entitlements data. Where do you get journals from? What sources do you have? What dates of access? Are there embargoes that need to be calculated? All of these things. And then finally, the library authentication. Do you run a proxy server, a VPN system, an Athens system, SAML, et cetera, et cetera? All those need to be married together to create this understanding. And that way, then we can take a particular article with a unique identifier, like a DOI or PMID, and within a fraction of a second, we can determine if we know that you're at, say, University of Michigan, do you have access to the PDF of this article from some source? Yes or no? And if we can determine that, then we can present a dynamic URL for the user to get them to that material. And so that has a lot of different interesting applications beyond Browsine. Now, when we were building Browsine, again, starting back in 2012, and we were continuing to evolve the feature set and different platforms we were supporting, this was always a foundational technology. Because we knew that it then could better replicate the simplicity of the print experience, right? If you pull a journal off the shelf and say, I'm opening it up, table of contents, article on page 16 looks pretty cool. Now I flip to the article and there it is. And we wanted to make sure that we could have that level of simplicity. And so we had to build all that LibKey stuff to make that happen. And so realizing this about a year and a half ago or so, we realized that there were other systems out there, of course, that have been used for many years, discovery systems in particular, like Primo and Summon and EDS and so on, that of course also get you to an article record, like a table of contents, but it's a search environment. So you're looking at search results, but they don't have the simplicity that browsing does in going directly to that PDF document and not having to deal with source choosing and finding the PDF within various publisher pages and all this stuff. And so we thought it'd be really great to produce an API that we could then integrate into these other systems. And that's exactly what we did, and we call that LibKey Discovery. Some of you on the call may already be using that. So with the success of that, we started looking this year then to say, are there other places that we could export this technology so that it could be used by users coming from other directions, maybe not through discovery, but through other systems like PubMed, which of course is what LibKey Link is about. And there are other things down the road that we're going to be doing that with as well. And so here's just a little bit about LibKey Discovery, for example, because if you have LibKey Discovery, you know that you're taking cover images from Third Iron. That's enhancing article result records within Primo or Summon or EDS and so on. And not only that, but you also get article and context links. So in one click, you can link back to the origin of that article within its original context, providing a really nice serendipitous discovery experience, as well as a real good pedagogical opportunity if you're at a university to teach about the way that scholarly journals are organized and so on. And it also provides that LibKey Direct PDF. So one click, get right to the PDF document. So this has been really popular in the last many months. Here's just a quick screenshot of how this might look in Summon, Primo, EDS. You can see that all those features are present, but the thing that we're doing is essentially making the aesthetics match the host platform. That's really important. We want this to feel completely organic for the user. So when we were doing that, that's been very successful, but when we've talked to a lot of our medical libraries or our hospital libraries, they say, yeah, that's all great, but we don't use any of that stuff. We direct our users to PubMed. And we've integrated with PubMed with our O tool or our link out local so that it links back to our link resolver. So unfortunately, while the holdings are present, it's not as slick of an experience that the folks who are using Summon and Primo and EDS have. It's still got these many steps that users have to follow. Can something be done about this? And that's where we came out with LibKey Link. Now, before I dig into what LibKey Link is, I do want to also provide this update that we now have a number of services available so that to the point where we've decided to actually add additional ways that we're presenting and selling services from Third Iron. So instead of having just a singular service now, we actually have three. There's browsing, which many of you on the call either subscribe to or are familiar with. There's the LibKey Suite, which includes that LibKey Discovery I was just talking about, as well as LibKey Link, and the forthcoming LibKey Nomad, which is a browser extension that we're going to be releasing in June that allows you to install it in a browser. And when a user encounters an article by doing Google searches or PubMed searches or whatever, and they get to that publisher page, in one click, or not even in one click, but they'll get a kind of hover over on that page saying your library has access to this. Click here to get access. It's a really nice way for folks who are just on the open web to make sure that the library resources are being visible to that user. And then finally, we have LibKey.io, which is going to be a very easy DOI PMID lookup. Think Sci-Hub in its simplicity. I just put it in and boom, I get access to the material. But it's using your library resources. It's not an illegal pirate-based site like Sci-Hub is. It's also going to be presented as a new standard for scholarly linking. This idea of libkey.io / a DOI or PMID can then present a path to access for just millions of users around the world. A really, really cool and powerful thing that's really the next generation way of linking for scholars. So that's a really ambitious project coming out at the end of the year. Now, if you have been a subscriber to Browsing for a couple of months or even many years, you have been automatically upgraded to Third Iron Complete. So everything I'm talking about today and the stuff that's coming out there, LibKey Nomad and LibKey IO in the future, you will get automatically as part of your subscription. And we really thank you for subscribing. If you're brand new to us and you've not subscribed to anything, you will be offered the option to subscribe to the LibKey Suite, to Browsing, or to Third Iron Complete. And it depends on the type of institution you are, what you might decide to do. So without further ado then, LibKey Link. Let's learn about this. So like I mentioned, we really thought about this primarily with the idea of trying to bring something similar to what we've been doing with the discovery vendors into PubMed, and of course, working with the uniqueness of PubMed. So everybody, I think, on this call is probably very familiar with this common workflow with PubMed if you're using that O tool or, again, link out local. If you come to a citation, you'll get your full text links available there in the top right-hand corner. And then if you click on that, you get to a link resolver screen of some kind. Obviously, with link resolvers, this is EBSCO, this could be SFX, could be Alma, could be Serial Solutions. They all look a little bit different, and that's fine. But of course, at this point, there's always the risk of users being horribly confused at what's going on here because they saw some button that says get article or download article or library link or whatever you call your link there. But now they may be forced to deal with some sort of choice, which is full of library jargon, embargoes and this and that and whatever. But hopefully they can navigate this. If they navigate it, they maybe get to a publisher page or an aggregator page or something. And then, of course, maybe they're familiar with that platform. Maybe they've never seen it before. So now they're kind of looking that over, trying to find the actual document to download and get beyond the abstract because I just saw the abstract in the citation. Why am I looking at an abstract again? And eventually they get it and boom, they get to the document. And even those of us on the call who are professional librarians, and we know all this stuff and we can navigate this pretty quickly, we're still clicking through all of these things to complete this task. And it's something that's done by our users, thousands of times a day at our different institutions. So with LibKey Link, we're trying to figure out how we can make a fast lane for this. Because if you remember earlier in the presentation, I described how LibKey Link has advanced knowledge of the sources of the content, all that metadata, authentication, and all of those pieces. And it's been pre-indexed in a way where we can calculate all of this stuff in a fraction of a second. So with that, this is how LibKey works. We are able to give you a new link out URL that you can use inside of PubMed rather than your link resolver URL. We will then take your link resolver URL on our end for safekeeping. And here's why. If a user then clicks on that Get Article button, it will immediately go to LibKey, but it doesn't actually go to any interface. There's no screen to click on. There's nothing to navigate. This is just an invisible kind of forwarding protocol. And what we will do in that fraction of a second is determine, can we provide a PDF for this user? And if the answer is yes, then we will do exactly that. We'll make a beeline right to the document, in this case, maybe on ScienceDirect. And of course, if the user needs to authenticate, we will then present whatever authentication needs to happen. So for example, if you use a proxy server, we'll present a proxy page at that point. Or perhaps you don't have any authentication for remote access, so it's only on-site. LibKey will instantly check, is this user within the IP range where they will not encounter a paywall? And we'll let them know, nope, sorry, you can't progress because you're not within this IP range. So we do all of the kind of fancy calculations very quickly and give them this best possible experience. Now, LibKey supports a lot of major publishers, but it doesn't support everything. So if we can't support it, then we will automatically reroute them back to the link resolver. So in other words, the worst case scenario in this process is your current scenario. There's no, kind of going back to some absolutely a worst case scenario. You're essentially getting the current scenario or something much faster and much better. And that's it. That's exactly how it works. So it's quite simple to see how that plays out. So as kind of a more condensed version of this, if we are able to provide that one-click PDF for the user because of the sourcing and everything else that you have, the experience will be get article, new tab, the article. That's it. Really simple, really elegant, and really gets back to that kind of goal with LibKey and the other Third Iron technology of presenting a print-like simplicity to get to content. Installing this is very simple as well, because you control, as the library, your access to the link out configuration within the PubMed's website there on NCBI. So you may be familiar with the screen here where you can edit that outside tool. You have the base URL for your link resolver. We will be providing you a new base URL to use, and you will let us know the base URL for your link resolver so that we can make sure to route things accordingly. And that's it. So you control when to turn this on. If you decide to change it back at any time, you can do that on your own. You don't have to contact us. Very easy to do. LibKey supports a lot of top publishers from Science Direct, NHM, Wolters Kluwer, Springer, Wiley, Sage, Taylor & Francis, down the line. We have a number of top medical publishers that are coming soon in the next couple of weeks. Of course, we're all familiar with these. So after we have both that and support today, it's going to be a lot of support. We are continuing to investigate the aggregators. They have much more sophisticated linking schemes. We do actually have a method for linking to Clinical Key, but their site doesn't support it right now. So certainly if a Clinical Key is important to you, I do recommend reaching out to your sales rep and letting them know that you plan to use LibKey Link and you'd love it if Clinical Key was supported by that technology as well. But again, if you have an article or if you have a journal on Clinical Key, we're just going to route you back to the link resolver. So we're not losing anything. It's not that that content is not accessible. It's just that it won't be the streamlined, fast process that, say, Wiley and Sage and Taylor & Francis will have. So some common questions. What are the requirements for my library? Well, of course, you first have to be a subscriber to Third Iron Technology, whether that be Third Iron Complete, like many of you on the call probably are now, or to the LibKey suite of services. You also have to be using OTool or Linkout Local. If you do not use Linkout Local and instead use Linkout via the submission tool, which means you're not using your link resolver, we cannot support you with LibKey Link. So certainly if you have a link resolver and you're not using Linkout Local, we encourage you to transition to that in the next couple of weeks so you're going to be ready for LibKey Link. When will this be available? Very soon, end of March 2019. So very excited to be able to release this. And how do you then learn what you do next? How do you get set up with this? Well, everybody who's registered for this webinar is going to be put on a special mailing list, so you will be contacted when this is available. Like I said, towards the end of March 2019 here. And we also are going to be announcing this on our regular mailing list, which if you're not part of already, I certainly encourage you to join. You can do so at the bottom of thirdiron.com. You'll see there's a join the newsletter box there. So you can certainly do that. So that's it in a nutshell. LibKey Link, designed to remove source confusion and minimize inefficiencies, including that waiting for pages to load, hunting for PDF, deciding on sources, just overall saving time for our clinicians. It's a very simple one-time setup. You simply replace the link resolver URL and everything happens from there. Your holdings that you maintain with us to power the browsing service and other LibKey services are all tied together here. So there's no other management things you have to do. So great, that's what I wanted to present, but we have a number of questions that people have been asking here. So I do want to go back to those. If you have questions that have been bubbling up, please do put them in the box now so I can be sure to answer them live here for you. Let's see, Caroline asks, when will LibKey Nomad be available? That should be available in June this year. So in a couple more months, we will do another kind of special webinar series about Nomad as it gets closer so that we can talk specifically about features that it does and how it works and everything. David Coleman asks, will it accept IP authentication? Yes, David. So if your institution is set up as on-site only for authentication for your users, that will translate to LibKey Link as well. So we will certainly guide the user to be on site and present a message to them if they're not on site and they're trying to link through with LibKey Link. So yes. Digital Fellows says, can we have a preferred platform for a journal, like making sure a journal shows up in the journal page, not in an aggregator like ProQuest. You cannot set that yourself, but we have set up that priority order for you ahead of time already. So we kind of call it an opinionated order that we've set up. The way it basically works is this: we do always prioritize publisher pages over aggregators. So if you send us a holdings file that, of course, is going to have overlaps between multiple sources from many journals, we automatically kind of scrub that, and we look at the sources, the dates, and everything, and we first prioritize, do you have this directly from a publisher? If you do, that's going to be the source. If you don't, then we kind of look at, well, what's the most currently available material that you have? Because we know, just statistically, the most currently available source is the one that's going to be used the most. And so we kind of handle all that at processing time ahead of time to help you get to PDF whenever possible. Good question. Eden, will the get article link be customizable to individual institutions? Looks fabulous. Thank you for that, Eden. I think what you're referring to is the button here. Let me go back in my presentation just a little bit. Here we go. Pardon me. Okay, I think what you're referring to here is what the arrow is pointing at, where it says "Get Article," right? So that actually, I stole that from Cleveland Clinic. Apologies, Cleveland Clinic. That's their logo and their icon. You will actually be using the same icon that you're using today. So by using the LibKey technology, we're just changing the link behind the icon. You can update your own icon with whatever you like. That's completely independent of LibKey technology. So that's definitely up to you. Karen S., I know that browsing only goes back to 2005. Is that also true for LibKey? No, it is not, Karen. So you're right. With browsing, we have a soft limit of 2005 to present. We do that for a number of reasons, mostly because just the statistics that, about 92% of all use in browsing in the browse modality, where you're trying to stay up to date, is used this year or the previous year total. So 8% is everything before, say, 2017. And so for us to backload all of this material, back to the 50s or 40s or 20s or whatever, where it's barely going to get used in a browse, again, a browse sense, didn't make a lot of sense to us. But now we're not doing that with LibKey. We're in a search modality, right? You could be searching in PubMed and go down a big rabbit hole of things where you're looking at citations and everything else. So in the LibKey environment, we do not have that soft limit applied. So if you have the current source for the Wiley Journal back to 1985, that's going to be available to you with LibKey Link as well. You have New England Journal back to, I can't even remember when they start, but it was close to turn of the century. Then we will have that for you as well if we have the metadata to support it correctly. Great question. From AW, can LibKey Link route to the link resolver's document delivery form? It will if you have that as part of your link resolver. So most folks who have the link resolver page there, per OTool rules, PubMed has some kind of specifications of how they want you to do this. So you usually have something like this example where you have Iliad or whatever document delivery you have as part of the link resolver. So certainly if you're using OTool, meaning that you're and not link out local, meaning that you're going to get an icon all the time for every single article. Some of those you're not going to have subscription access to. And in those cases, indeed, we will route you back here right away. And probably the only link that's going to be showing is a link to your document delivery form. So yes, that will be covered. Rob, is there a complete list of publishers that don't work with LibKey? Not really. The summary that I kind of provided there is a good high-level overview because it starts to get extremely long tail very quickly, and we're evolving that nearly daily. So we don't really have a great mechanism for keeping that exactly up to date. So I apologize for that. Okay, who else we got here? I don't see Ovid on this list. Okay, oh, and you found it. Yeah, so with Ovid, it's a little peculiar, but it's really the Wolters Kluwer and like the LWW stuff that's on Ovid. If you have a lot of third-party things on Ovid, those are not supported. The reason for that is that the metadata coming from Wolters Kluwer includes very tightly controlled accession numbers, which means that we can directly link to that content. If you have the third-party materials, it does not have that material. It doesn't have those identifiers. LibKey is not an open URL linking mechanism, mostly because we don't think open URL is terribly good. It's very reliant on things that can get very squishy, like titles and author names with diacritics and blah, 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 right? So what LibKey is very focused on is accession number, standard number style linking, like DOIs, PMIDs, accession numbers, PII numbers, these sorts of things. So that's a little bit of a detail about what we link to for Ovid. Eden says, well, link to book chapters. It will not. So the LibKey technology is focused on journals, so serials only, at least for now, ... So there you go. Other questions from folks before we end the call? Paul asks, is there going to be a recording of this? Yes, I'm recording this, and everybody who's signed up to attend this will get a copy of that recording either today or tomorrow. So hang tight on that, and yes, and you also get a copy of the slides. So if you have colleagues who you might want to, refer the slides to, you can do that too. And K Wolf asks, so our rep will reach out to us when this is ready to roll out. Not necessarily your rep. They might be advertising this, but the easiest thing to do is just join our mailing list. You'll see it'll be at the bottom of thirdiron.com. There's a place to join our mailing list. If you register for this webinar, you're also going to be emailed. So you may get emailed twice from us, just letting you know, hey, this is available because we know you're interested. And that email will contain instructions on how to get this set up. Very likely it'll be fill out a short form or send us a quick note or whatever saying you want to do this, because then that will prompt us to generate that LibKey link for you to use in PubMed. So don't worry, we will be reaching out about this. Will this be automatically added to EDS when this is available, or do we have to request this? So LibKey Link is specifically for PubMed. It's not a EDS integration. I think, Heidi, you might also be referring to the LibKey Discovery system that I talked about earlier in there. LibKey Discovery does have to be requested from us to be integrated. So certainly, if that's of interest to you, please send us a note at support@thirdiron.com asking for the EDS integration for LibKey. And Karen says, for clarification, if we are subscribers to Browsine, are we part of the LibKey suite? Karen, as long as you've been a subscriber or started your subscription by the end of 2018, then yes, you will automatically get Third Iron Complete, which includes everything in the suite. Starting this year in 2019, we are selling them separately. Yes, indeed. And Kathy is asking, I think, the same question. So hopefully that answers things. If you're a new customer, certainly you can contact me at john@thirdiron.com. My email I'll leave at the end here, and I can route you to the correct sales rep for your region. Absolutely, Heidi. We appreciate all of our customers. Excellent. Any other final questions? I appreciate the tip there. Glad that everybody's happy with things. I appreciate that. Great. Well, I think that's probably the end of the questions. So everybody have a wonderful week, and we look forward to giving you a heads up when this is finally available. Thanks so much for attending, everybody. Bye-bye now.